So welcome everyone, welcome to the webinar, CBD Belongs in a Pharmacy. My name is Linda Barnes and I'm the Director of Marketing and Strategic Alliances here at PRS Pharmacy Services. We want to thank you for attending and submitting your questions to us. We have already received hundreds of questions, so we'll try to answer most of those during the webinar. We did pull out the questions from the people who are registered for this particular webinar, so I want you to know that we will answer your questions. Hopefully some of those questions will get answered as the webinar goes along. But as those of you who have attended any of our CBD webinars in the past know, we want to make this as interactive as possible. So we invite you to ask questions via your chat feature during the webinar, and we'll also try to answer those questions as well. So we have two experts here in the CBD space that will be joining us today. But before I introduce them first, I want to briefly go over the topics that we're going to cover today. So we're going to do a live demo of the site, and we're going to cover some topics before we get to that, and then we're going to cover some additional topics as we're looking at the live website. But today we're going to talk about the endocannabinoid system. We're going to talk about dosing, drug interactions. We're going to discuss legal issues, delivery methods, new technology, nanotechnology, liposomal delivery. We're going to talk about marketing CBD and how to talk to your local doctors and customers about CBD. And then we're going to take your questions. So here today to help you understand these topics is Tim and Evan Gregorius. Evan is our marketing assistant and CBD advisor here at PRS. He has extensive experience working in the CBD space. Most notably, he has assisted with the formulation of several commercially successful CBD products. He has presented at numerous conferences and trade shows, including the 2019 NCPA Annual Convention. He is one of the lead content creators and contributors of ncpacbdsource.com. And he has worked with numerous CBD companies on their digital marketing efforts and content, and we are happy to have his expertise here today. Our other speaker, our in-house CBD for pharmacy guru, as we like to call him, is Tim Gregorius. Tim is a registered pharmacist who is our current VP of operations here at PRS and also NCPA CBD Source powered by PRS, a major national project launched by NCPA to help independent pharmacies with CBD education, products, and marketing. Tim is an expert in the subject of CBD for pharmacy, and his efforts and research are changing the way pharmacy owners approach CBD. So without further delay, I'm going to turn things over to Tim.
Thank you, Linda. Good evening, everyone. I appreciate your time in the evening like this. Almost 2 years ago, the idea of a pharmacist-centric CBD resource grew out of a conversation that 5 pharmacists were having at a national trade show. This site has evolved into what may well be the most comprehensive resource of CBD educational content and information available for pharmacists. Its genesis was the simple idea that since we pharmacists are regarded as the drug experts, shouldn't we also be the CBD experts? And one of the basic themes that we're going to talk about tonight and is central to the whole concept of the resource is that CBD belongs in a pharmacy. It's the basic and fundamental reason for the website that we've created and for us doing things like talking to you today. But let's look at why aren't we already the CBD experts? Well, some of those reasons why they can get kind of fuzzy, but there's the stigma surrounding marijuana. There was a lot of confusion over a lot of years. Was CBD marijuana? How did that work? And even today, literally even today, I talk to an occasional pharmacist who assumes that CBD is medical marijuana. So that's one of the reasons that we're really putting an effort into educating the pharmacist about CBD. And historically, the endocannabinoid system has not been taught in pharmacy or medical schools. And one thing that has become evident to me over the last several years, if you don't understand the endocannabinoid system, you are never going to understand how and why CBD works, which obviously we have to understand how and why it works before we can sell it to our customers and then counsel them on their questions. So the endocannabinoid system is the starting point of looking into why we are not already the experts. And by the way, we have done several webinars in the past that delve to spend the entire hour on the endocannabinoid system, and we're going to do 5 or 10 minutes here. But I invite you to take advantage of those webinars that are available on the website and looking into each of these subjects a little closer. But allow me to hit a few of the main points from those previous webinars and some points that are hopefully going to help you understand why the endocannabinoid system is so important. Let's look first at how pervasive the ECS is in the human body, because it is no less important than any of the other major systems, be it the cardiovascular system, the endocrine, the immune system, the reproductive system. But the ECS wasn't discovered until the mid-1990s. So we were taught this incredible information. We weren't taught this incredible information in school, but it's our responsibility to go on a journey to learn it ourselves. One helpful fact to remember as you begin this journey is that homeostasis doesn't even exist without the endocannabinoid system. So it's the mechanism that controls homeostasis in the vast majority of body systems. It's the body's perpetual regulatory process. This profound concept of homeostasis that we learned about in 5th grade is where and how CBD works. So you can see there why we try to put such an emphasis on understanding the endocannabinoid system if we choose to, or if we want to learn about CBD and how and why it works. Well, how is that? How do we not know about this, and how does it work? I'm going to let Evan go into some of the details here, and we're going to take a deep dive here. He takes a deep dive into some of this, and I'll show you some resources later that if you want to follow up on what we're talking about here, we can absolutely do that. Evan?
Sure thing. So I'm going to try to paint a pretty clear picture here of the endocannabinoid system without going too far into the rabbit hole. But so how does it regulate regulation? That's a pretty bold statement to make. Well, to understand that, you got to take a look at what the endocannabinoid system is and its individual parts. The endocannabinoid system is a system of receptors, enzymes, and signaling molecules, just like dopamine, serotonin, or any other neurotransmitter system in the body. The difference is that CB1 cannabinoid receptors, one of the 2 types of cannabinoid receptors, are more abundant than all the other receptors in the body combined. Let that fact sink in for a second, and then we'll go on to what the neurotransmitters are. The neurotransmitters, or endogenous cannabinoids, are produced on demand from lipids, specifically arachidonic acid, which are present in every cell wall. The sheer number of receptors, as well as the presence of these endocannabinoid precursors in every cell, explains how the endocannabinoid system is able to exert a regulatory effect across a vast majority of the other systems in the brain and the body. So what are the endocannabinoid signaling molecules themselves? Well, there are 2 primary endocannabinoids, anandamide and 2-AG. Anandamide is released tonically or constantly to create a baseline activity level at the cannabinoid receptors. This release of anandamide can be increased or decreased based on injury or disease. 2-AG, on the other hand, is released like a traditional neurotransmitter with transient spikes rather than a constant release. This is how the effects of the ECS are so dynamic and adaptable and able to regulate with precision the activity of the cells in which they are expressed. In effect, they can be turned up or turned down. There are also about 10 other signaling molecules and between 10 and 20 other receptors that we have known about for a while now. They're called orphan receptors because we didn't understand their function until recently, and they actually fit into the umbrella of the endocannabinoid system. There are also gene transcription factors like PPAR gamma that modulate gene expression in the immune system, or TRPV receptors, which register heat pain in the peripheral nervous system, and capsaicin and menthol, they act on that receptor as well. So these endocannabinoid molecules are the primary endogenous ligands of these receptors, and as our understanding grows, they'll probably become considered part of the endocannabinoid system. So what does the endocannabinoid system actually do? Well, that involves the cannabinoid receptors, of course. The ECS consists of CB1 and CB2 receptors. CB1 receptors are primarily located in the brain and nervous system, and CB2 receptors are primarily located throughout the body and the immune system. The cannabinoid receptors, when activated, reduce the activity of the cell in which they are expressed. The kind and degree of receptor activation, depending on the neurotransmitter makeup, like we talked about before, determines the degree to which the cellular activity is reduced. The implication here is that a reduction of receptor activity would then produce an increase in cellular activity. In other words, cannabinoid receptor activation is inversely correlated with cellular metabolic activity. It's a simple negative feedback mechanism, and it's expressed in about half of all the cells in the human body.
That is, when I was first learning this, this is just an amazing concept, and I'm going to pause here for a second on this this notion of upregulation and induction of receptor sites on the cells, because that really didn't make a lot of sense to me early on. I am an older pharmacist. I was in pharmacy school back in the 80s, so a lot of this had not really been information at the front of my brain as I'm beginning this several years ago, beginning the study of CBD. And this notion of induction, when I finally understood that how does this upregulate and downregulate? Well, what it's doing, as Evan just described, it's actually increasing the amount of receptors relative to and as a result of stimulation and injury to the cell. I had the thought as I was learning this, actually as Evan was explaining this to me on the back porch one day, that makes sense how the endocannabinoid system can have such an incredible function across all the different body systems, because it's able to change how many receptors are involved. What if other body systems had this ability? What if all of our opiate receptors were able, upon injury, to undergo induction? And you start out with 10 of them on a cell, and after injury, you've got 1,000 of them on the cell, which induction can actually increase things up to 100-fold.
Absolutely.
How would that change how we deliver opioids, how we deliver pain medication, if our body had the ability to do this upregulation and this induction? So I hope that's not lost on you, that's why the endocannabinoid system, it has evolved over these 650 million years to be able to do something that incredible.
Absolutely.
And it's able to do that because it's such a simple system with the neurotransmitters present in every cell wall. So let's give two examples of endocannabinoid activity. An example of this in the CNS is retrograde neurotransmission, which is the primary negative feedback process in the glutamate, GABA, dopamine, and serotonin systems in the human brain. So I've broken this negative feedback loop into about 4 steps. First, an action potential triggers the release of a primary neurotransmitter like dopamine or serotonin into the synapse. Second, the postsynaptic cell responds to this signal by depolarizing, which triggers the phospholipase enzyme to extract arachidonic acid from the cell wall, as mentioned before, leading to the on-demand synthesis of the endocannabinoid molecules. Third, these endocannabinoids diffuse out of the postsynaptic cell and travel in a retrograde direction backward to the presynaptic cell, where they bind to the cannabinoid receptors embedded in its surface. They're autoreceptors because they're on the initial neuron, not on the postsynaptic neuron. And lastly, this activation of those receptors ultimately repolarizes the cell, inhibiting further release of the primary neurotransmitter and bringing both neurons back to a resting state. So the endocannabinoid system, this process I just explained, is literally responsible for determining the duration of about 60% of all the action potentials in the human brain. That's a bold statement, but it's, as we learn more about this, it's becoming clear that this system is incredibly important. An example of this in the immune system is in typical inflammation. So when an inflammatory stimulus is detected, again, I broke it into 4 rough steps that lead from that stimulation to the end result of bringing inflammation back down. First, Injury induces phospholipase, similar to an action potential in the brain, which again frees arachidonic acid from the cell wall. Next, two things happen at the same time. First, that freed arachidonic acid is turned to prostaglandins, by the cyclooxygenase 1 and 2 enzymes, which triggers the pro-inflammatory cascade. Simultaneously, the arachidonic acid is also synthesized into 2-AG, which triggers an anti-inflammatory cascade, but it ramps up at a slower pace. Third, once the stimulus of the injury subsides, the anti-inflammatory process has now overtaken the pro-inflammatory process, which ends the production of the inflammation. And lastly, as the prostaglandins wear off completely, 2-AG initiates the release of anti-inflammatory cytokines, promoting the healing process once that damage is contained. So as you can see, the ECS is responsible for a wide variety of simple vital processes throughout the human body.
So thank you, Ev. Let me apologize that we hammered your brain with a chemistry class at 7:15 on a Wednesday night, but we do that for a reason. We want, and this will become even more evident once I'm doing a live demo of the education on the website, but we don't want this to be lost on anyone of the importance of CBD and how it influences this, this system, the endocannabinoid system. If any of you have actually looked at the patient package insert or Googled the mechanism of action of acetaminophen, literally it says not known or unknown. Well, if you look at the red circled areas, so those on the left are the two endocannabinoids, and on the right is the active metabolite of acetaminophen. And I'll let those pictures speak for themselves there, that acetaminophen is doing what the endocannabinoid system has been doing for 650 million years. We didn't know that. We know it now.
It's a pretty cool fact.
Yeah, it really is.
After a drug has been introduced to the market.
There was an aha moment in many laboratories, and certainly on our back porch when I realized, oh my goodness, that's why acetaminophen works. And I believe now that's changing in terms of what the mechanism of action is. I haven't really looked it up. I should see if it still says unknown. I want to bring another person to your attention here, and we have Dr. Ethan Russo on the website and a couple of YouTube videos that I would recommend that you look at too. But Dr. Russo is the godfather of endocannabinoid research. He literally started back in the 90s. And this is so important in his mind, everything that Evan just went over and what I was just showing you about the molecular structure and how drugs that work today, and we didn't even know it, work because they have a similar structure to the endocannabinoids. Dr. Russo is, one of the famous quotes of his is, for every drug developed into the future, designers will have to consider each drug's impact on and interaction with the endocannabinoid system as it's being designed. So he's making the statement that going forward, we can't pretend we don't know this. Every drug is going to have to be considered for its impact on the endocannabinoid system. The other reason that we spend a lot of time here on the endocannabinoid system and why we believe that you need to understand this first before CBD makes any sense to you is, and I understand that what we've done here, we're going to try and explain the endocannabinoid system in 10 or 15 minutes. And that made us think, well, what if we tried to explain to someone how a vaccine works, but they didn't really understand how the endocannabinoid or how the immune system works? They would need to first have an understanding of the immune system before we could understand how a vaccine works. That kind of feels like what we're doing here with the endocannabinoid system. We're saying, hey, CBD works because of the endocannabinoid system, and let us explain the ECS to you in 10 minutes. That's not going to happen. If you tried to understand how a vaccine works, but you didn't come to the table with the understanding of how the immune system works that allows vaccines to stimulate the immune system, it would be pointless. So we're not expecting you're going to walk away from 10 minutes of this and be an expert in the endocannabinoid system.
We're going to show you how to
But what we have done is we've collected material in one place so you can absorb it at your own pace and dive as deeply into this information as you want. Once you've grasped the magnitude of the endocannabinoid system, we invite you to explore how CBD works on the ECS just as profoundly, beautifully, and simply as an SSRI impacts the CNS or an ACE inhibitor works on the renal, the CV, and the endocrine systems. Well, we believe it's most helpful to study CBD the same way we would study any other drug.
Be able to see the.
Are you seeing,
Yeah.
are they, Roger,
Yeah.
are they seeing the CBD up there?
Yep, you should be able to
All right.
see the live website now.
So just as we have treated CBD here as a drug and we looked at it that way, what I want to do here is show you how we've organized the educational content on the website in a way that a pharmacist would expect it to be organized and be delivered to them. We're looking at the mechanism of action, which we just did. We looked at the mechanism of action of CBD. I'm going to click here, and there's a little bit of a delay once I click. But you can see how we have this organized with many of the items that we want you to pay attention to linked so that you can go and do your own research on this. That's absolutely the way we designed this. We want you to be able to. Yeah.
Absolutely. And, you know, one of the things I think is important to note is that there's a lot of information out there. You can certainly Google about the endocannabinoid system, about CBD, some of the other subjects that we're going to be talking about, dosing, those types of things, where you could Google that, you could see a chart, you could see information. What we caution against, and why one of the reasons why we started this project, was because we recognize that a lot of that information is just simply not correct information. It's been filtered through different brands of CBD, different ways, which these people aren't based in actual science. So sometimes it changes the meaning of the content. And so you really have to be careful about what you're reading, because you're just not certain if it's true or not. We wanted to make sure that when we put this together, these are clinical information, clinical trials that are currently happening or have happened. Everything that's on the site is information that has come from a clinical source.
Yep. Yeah, this is not, we're not suggesting you go to High Times and learn how CBD works.
Or CBD oil review.
You know, one of the things Evan was talking about was that CBD is a negative allosteric modulator. So we're trying to put all of this information here so that you have access to these ideas.
Mm-hmm.
What we really suggest you do, as I said a moment ago, is think of this: if you were going to be learning about a drug or a new drug came out and you needed to educate yourself so that you were going to be able to talk intelligently to your patients and understand what you were dispensing, you would go through and look at these things. You'd look at mechanism of action, drug interaction, side effects, dosage forms. Again, not by accident, we have it set up this way. Drug interactions is something I'm not going to talk deeply about here, other than to say that there is clearly this knowledge that has become more prevalent, and that is the cytochrome P450 enzymes and pharmacogenomics. What we have here is a table where CBD actually interacts with the cytochrome P450 system, sometimes as a substrate, other times as an inhibitor. And it's, you know, Evan and I can answer a lot of questions, and I kid you, he'll answer those questions. He has this stuff down cold.
But it's a great chart right there on the side.
You know,
yeah.
I'm just trying to show you that the information is here for you to take a deep dive, really, that
As deep as you want to go.
and at your pace.
Yep.
For sure. I'm just clicking on a couple of these that I had opened up right before the webinar. You know, an update on the safety and side effects of CBD, a review of clinical data. You know, we want you to have real information, because a lot of the questions I get from pharmacists will be, well, how do I find about drug interactions, or is it safe, or what is the safe dose? We want you to be able to go here and do this for yourself.
And we're constantly updating the site, so we try to stay right on top of it with anything having to do with legal status, anything having to do with new technology. That's really all here.
Yep. As a matter of fact, Evan added a page literally about an hour before the webinar.
Updated it, yeah. If you click on the What's New tab.
Well, we'll get to that. Yep.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
So the legal status is something we're going to talk about in a moment here in the webinar. But again, this is the legal status. That's usually a longer conversation and a very state-specific conversation. Let me go one more place here and show you, just to give you a taste of the website. Linda told me to wait until those popped up, and it's easier to scroll
Those
down.
are all our past webinars. We definitely recommend that you come to the website and listen to those webinars. Some of them cover some of this information in depth, really in depth. And there's some great questions in there too.
And so these are general articles. What's that, F?
I was just going to say the slide's kind of slow because there's so many people looking at
I know, yeah, right now.
What we have here is just a collection of articles at the bottom. And what I wanted to show you is that if you click on any of these links, so that looks like, okay, there's a lot of information there. But I want to show you that clicking on any one of these links
Bring up multiple.
takes you into another entire world. There really is a wealth of information here that we want you to take advantage of. We really do. So another unique, I would love to talk about education of CBD for pharmacists all day long. That's not the entire point of what we're doing here tonight. So I want to break away, because 2 hours from now I'll be boring you senseless with some of this stuff.
Oh, yeah,
but I want you to look at Linda's like, yeah, that's
still have more
not
to cover though. Yeah.
Another unique feature that we have here is the marketing. This is something we're proud of that we developed, and let me let Linda tell you about the marketing section.
So one of the things that, we really like to, drive home, the point that we like to drive home about CBD is it just isn't like any other product that you're carrying in the pharmacy. So you really have to approach it. It's so unique. There's so many different unique aspects to it. It's so new. It's really in its infancy. There's a couple things. You want to take the approach of education. Obviously, you're educating yourself. That's why you're here. But you take the approach of education even when it comes to marketing CBD. So you're going to educate not only your customers and your community, but also the local physicians. I know Tim is a very strong proponent of this, in that you simply cannot be successful selling CBD in your community to your patients without first starting by going to those local physicians, right?
We'll talk about that when you bring up the.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we put this resource together so that there was information and pamphlets for you to have that you can use to help market CBD in your community. I want to just kind of scroll through here for a little bit so you can kind of see.
For 1 second,
yeah.
The brochure for physicians.
Yeah.
In my mind, this was not an if to put this in. This was an absolute. This was not a maybe. I have had the opportunity to speak to several pharmacy owners who are selling upwards of, and in one case, more than $250,000 worth of CBD a year. The first time I talked to the guy, I said, what'd you do? How did you get to that point in your community? How'd that happen? And he said, simple. I went and talked to every doctor, and I let them know I was the CBD expert. It was one of those beautiful moments. I laughed and said, "Oh, it's as simple." It was brilliant.
Absolutely.
He went and spent time with every single doctor that writes. He's in a small town, but every doctor that writes for his customers, and he told them what he understands about CBD and how it can help their practice. Mrs. Jones comes in, she's not sleeping. He doesn't have to just write an Ambien script first, or if she's already on Ambien and she wants to double the dose, hey, maybe you need to go talk to Joe at Joe's Pharmacy. He might have an alternative thought for us there. So that was again one of those aha moments for me, that's one of the tricks. That's what the pharmacist has to do.
And you've talked to numerous pharmacies since then that are doing this successfully.
Yep.
And that's one of the key focus issues, is that they are talking to their local physicians.
Holding seminars,
right.
they're doing all kinds of creative things,
right.
But it's the relationship with the physician. And once the physician trusts that you're the CBD expert in town, the customers are coming.
Absolutely. And so that's really, I want to walk you through a marketing starter kit that we did put together and some of the resources, and it's extremely affordable. It's $198, and you get so much information, and actually constantly updated information that that you can access in there too. So I just kind of want to go through a little bit of that. If you'll see here, you'll see what's inside there, and I'm going to walk you through a portal where you would go to actually order this. But just so you know, there's a lot of marketing materials that are available that are all brand specific. If you carry specific brands in your pharmacy, you probably have those materials. These are really not there. There's no brand mentioned. These are non-brand specific. This is a multimedia marketing kit, and it's customizable so that you can actually customize and put your logo, your pharmacy name on these materials. So what's in here really? Posters, window clings. There are brochures for the patients. There's education brochures for the physicians for leave behinds. There's brochure stands, bag stuffers. There's a whole digital marketing material resource as well. Once you order the kit and you get your printed materials ordered, you then are sent access to the digital marketing materials. And in there are radio scripts. There's public relations, like PR messages for you to be able to send out to your local media. There's hold messages for you, in-store messages. There's social media calendar, social media posts for Instagram and Facebook. And that's constantly, there's new material in there all the time, so you can update that. I'm gonna take you into the portal now. You'll see that a new window is gonna open up. We're gonna click on order kit so you can kind of see how this process works very quickly. And you'll see here just how affordable some of these materials are. That's actually, you know, part of this was that we want to make this something that you're utilizing, not something even that we're really worried about making money on. We just wanted to make this resource available to you, the pharmacies. So you'll see you can order anything in here a la carte. I'm going to walk you through the kit in a second, but I'm just going to show you. So if we look at a brochure stand here really quickly, let this load, you'll see you can order, the kit comes with one. If you wanted to, you could add another one. It's only $10. These are extremely affordable things. So I'm going to take you back and we're going to look at ordering the starter kit. So I'm going to click on that and add it to the cart. You can see everything that's located within it. We're going to add this to the cart. I'm going to click on configure bundle. That just really means that I'm going to, I want to add your logo. You want to add your logo to it. So we're asking for just some quick information from you, your pharmacy name, your address, your city, state and zip code, your phone number, and then you have an area here where you can upload your logo as well. I'm going to click on this and just bring it up so you can kind of look. This is the front of the patient education brochure. So you can see here.
That's a great piece to put in your customers' hands while
Absolutely.
They're making the decision and again, to position you as the CBD expert.
And there's a great brochure stand that you can display these on your counter for them to take. So I'm just going to pretend that we actually did do this. We're going to trick the system a little bit, show you the two pieces that are customizable are that patient brochure and the physician education brochure here. I'm going to bring that up too. We just discussed that so you can kind of see what the front of that one looks like. And it's a simple process. So you're just going to fill out that information, upload that logo again. I'll take you into this. This shows you, everything that's actually in here. So the brochure stands, the bag stuffers, all of that. One other unique feature of the site really quickly is that if your particular community has a specific demographic, say you have Hispanics or African American, and you want those posters that are in your store to reflect that, you can certainly do that here. You can customize it right here.
As well, we will add anything to the site that you suggest. If we miss something that makes sense, that you don't see something that would work in your store, because what we're trying to do here is help you sell CBD.
Absolutely. And one thing I do want to mention, I just kind of clicked back over to the site out of that portal, is that there at the bottom of the marketing page is actually a questionnaire. If there's something that you don't see that you really think you would like to have in the kit, or you want something customized that isn't customized, we ask that you come here, fill this out, just let us know. Someone will be in contact with you. We'll do basically whatever you need as far as customizing the kit to what you need. So I'm going to head back over
Awesome.
to our slides.
Thank you, Linda. That's cool.
Yeah.
All right, folks, to transition here to the last subject of the day before we answer some of these questions, and that is what's new. As we mentioned before, we've added a new page to our online educational offerings, and we literally are calling it What's New. And it's going to have a lot of new technology updates as they become available, and we're going to go into one of those updates right now. The CBD world is changing at lightning speed, right? Only 18 months ago, the concept of liposomal delivery of nanoparticulates, it was groundbreaking. We didn't understand it. We thought, oh, this is going to change everything. How's this work? And it did change everything. But today, it is already old technology. Before I get ahead of myself, let's briefly look at CBD as a human therapeutic and why its delivery is so important, why this is such a big deal, this new technology. Ev, why don't you describe to us how the lyotropics work?
So CBD, all the new technology in the CBD world has to do with improving its low bioavailability. CBD is hydrophobic, is not water soluble by itself. To compensate for this, companies began pioneering the use of liposomes to transport CBD into the bloodstream, evading gastrointestinal metabolism. That's also why sublingual oils are so popular, because it absorbs through the sublingual and buccal membrane rather than going through the digestive tract. So liposomal technology forms spherical micelles with a single layer of amphiphilic phospholipids, or liposomes with a bilayer of phospholipids, just like a cell wall. Amphiphilic molecules have a hydrophilic head and a hydrophobic tail, meaning they're able to transport hydrophobic drugs through an aqueous environment. The amphiphilic molecules used to form these structures are known as messogens. So lecithin is a messogen, not to make a rhyme. In these structures, the hydrophobic drugs associate with the hydrophobic tails of the messogen, which shields them from the aqueous environment outside the structure and within its lumen. Liposomes and micelles are hundreds of nanometers in diameter. Furthermore, they are not self-assembling, which means they require expensive sonication to be manufactured, and they're not inherently stable. They have their drawbacks, including high cost and low shelf life on a yearly basis, not monthly. But recently, a company that we have partnered with has created breakthrough technology using multiple self-assembling messogens to create what's called a complex lyotropic liquid crystalline structure. That's a lot to unpack.
Say that fast, right?
So lyotropic is a word you're going to be hearing a lot in the near future. Lyotropic liquid crystals consist of both phospholipid and hydrocarbon amphiphilic molecules, those messogens, and they self-assemble into complex structures with a much smaller cross-section on the order of about 15 to 40 nanometers than liposomes, which are hundreds of nanometers, as I said before. So this allows for much greater solubility in the aqueous and low pH gastric environment. So what happens once we're in the GI tract? Well, a few things.
Yeah, this we decided to include this pretty simple 6-pictograph slide here, because this is critical to understand why these advances in technology work. So, okay, I mean, Evan just described, Linda, if you could back up one slide there. Evan just described the size of the liquid structure, you know, being on the order of 15 nanometers versus 100 or 200. Okay, well, that makes some sense that it's going to be able to deliver its cargo a little bit differently. But when we start looking at this on an even more granular level, it begins to paint a picture of why the bioavailability of orally consumed CBD is on the order of 2 to 7%. Some of the liposomal technology that Evan talked about, you know, there are claims that that's up at the 50, 60%. This lyotropic, this new liquid structure formation, this delivery looks to be in the 80, 90% bioavailability. Well, that sounds like that's getting into the crazy realm. How can that be? But this 10 to 20 times more bioavailable cargo that it's dropping into the bloodstream is because not only the size, but the nature of that liquid structure. As you can tell here, it gets to the gastric wall, it lets its cargo go, the CBD, into the bloodstream, and then it's just carried away through the rest of the digestive tract, the vehicle itself is. But interestingly, what happens here is that CBD, because it's been nano-sized, even more than normal, down to that 15 nanometers, it is able to go directly into the thoracic duct, bypassing the hepatic portal vein, which, as you know, is going to take it to the liver for even further metabolism. So not 100% goes to the lymph system via the thoracic duct, but it increases that percentage. And this technology that is really groundbreaking. It's new. It's happening.
Well, it's new, but it has been used in several hydrophobic drugs, including doxorubicin and amphotericin.
Yep.
And I believe a couple others. So it's been proven outside of the CBD world, which is, we're skeptical of.
Well, there's now a company that PRS and NCPA CBD Source has partnered with. But we don't have the finalized contracts yet. I had really hoped to be announcing this and launching this partnership and product by the time these webinars got
Are
here.
any of them on the webinar right now?
I hope so. It's frustrating that I can't do that. But this company has taken that technology that Evan described, that's already been delivering drugs using this lyotropic technology, and applied it to CBD.
And Tim had a self-fulfilling prophecy actually in our last webinar, where he said that oils would be obsolete, right?
Yeah, it was just talking to a lot of smart people. I began to realize that if they could take the bioavailability of CBD from 2 to 7% up to 80 or 90%, and that was greater than we could get in a sublingual oil. Well, who's ever going to take a sublingual oil? It tastes funny, you got to measure it right, you're putting olive oil under your tongue, and it just became a natural progression. And I started asking a lot of smart people, and they're like, oh yeah, we don't think sublingual oils are going to be around very long. So little did I know that 3 or 4 months later, we're going to be partnering with a company that is literally making the sublingual oils obsolete, but not yet. That's why there's a big coming soon. It's so frustrating, and when it is available, it will only be available here at NCPA CBD Source and only to independent pharmacists. So as I was saying, not only had we intended to be able to announce that today, I do want to say that when we are to the point where I can announce it and we're going to launch the product, each and every one of you on this webinar, you'll receive an email. I promise you that we will be telling you that the product is available and why. And if you have questions for me beyond the questions that we're going to answer now, and you want to talk about this and you want to pick Evan's brain, because frankly, he has a lot more of the details down right now than I do about why this works and how this is revolutionizing the CBD world, I'd love to have that conversation with you.
So our questions, really some of the material that we had talked about, we covered, that we said we were going to cover in topics, really we're going to cover right now in questions, because we don't want to talk about, when we're talking about things like state legality, we really want to, address the states that you had asked questions about. So really these fall into certain categories. So state specific legality of CBD. So the people that are on here, we've had quite a few ask about different states. We had Sona and Wesley asking about California. We have Texas, Florida. So there's a number of different states. So California seems to be the most popular right now.
The situation in California, I joke, it's becoming old, and people have heard me say this too many times, but you can walk around California smoking a joint, but you can't buy CBD in a pharmacy. The California State Board of Pharmacy has still not given permission, if you will. They don't want to say it's illegal. They've just sent notices out that they do not want CBD sold on pharmacy shelves. So you're able to buy it other places, just not in pharmacy. We did have a question yesterday about Texas.
Yep.
And there was some confusion. The question I didn't quite understand, and I've since emailed the person who asked the question. They asked about a license to sell CBD.
Licensing to
Texas.
obtain and sell CBD in Texas. That's exactly how they wrote it.
Yeah, and I think they may have been confusing a bill that Governor Abbott signed last summer, so the summer of 2019, that enabled people to grow and cultivate and sell hemp in Texas. And they would need specific licenses to do that, and it would have to be under 0.3% THC and so on, that being the magic number and that magic line that anytime we're talking about CBD, we need to be under 0.3% THC, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second.
And we had another question about Florida.
Yeah, but to finish up on the Texas thought, that was House Bill 1325, if anybody wants to read that. But as far as I know, well, let's put it this way. We're selling CBD to a lot of pharmacies in Texas, so.
A whole lot, yes. So,
Florida, the question in Florida is revolving around legislation that is active right now that wants to, I can't remember, I believe it's the agriculture, the Department of Agriculture in Florida is petitioning that CBD should be treated as a food, not a food supplement even, but be labeled as a food. And so in order to be able to sell CBD in the state of Florida, you're going to have to make sure that all of the labeling of any CBD products meets all of the standards that you would for any other food product.
I'm going to address this next question. Somebody wrote on an earlier webinar, and they're calling out Evan here, said that nanotechnology was a catchphrase and did not exist. We addressed that in our last webinars before these, that we apologize for that.
Well,
absolutely.
things have changed that fast. And when I said that last summer, there really wasn't any workable nanotechnology, but yes, you are correct. I did say that, and I take it back. Things have changed, and now we've even moved past liposomal, like we were talking about. So that's a perfect example of how fast things are moving.
Yeah.
And Devin, we did make a public apology.
We did.
That's a great point.
We actually sent out an email publicly apologizing for that. So if you're on here, we're sorry that you didn't get that email, but yeah.
Well,
We like to send out emails saying Evan was wrong.
Well, they love it.
when we made that statement, actually, it was nobody was actually selling nanotechnology devised CBD at that point. It wasn't meeting those standards.
Absolutely.
And that's why a couple of minutes ago, too, I said only 18 months ago, liposomal delivery of nanoparticulates was a groundbreaking concept, and now it's old technology.
So
well, good for you.
Absolutely.
That means you were paying attention 12 months ago. I'm impressed.
We love it. We love it. Okay, so we have Nancy, and she asked about dosage, dosing. We also had Caitlin. I think she asked about dosing as well. So let's talk about dosing here.
Well, specific questions about dosing. Let me say this about dosing.
I think Nancy's question was really ailments and dosage information. So is there different dosing for different?
There's a couple of different ways to think about dosing. Yeah, let's not go there yet. Okay.
Yeah.
If we're talking about topical products versus, how we're taking it sublingually, and now we're talking about gel caps, we start to enter into a gray area that we have to be very careful of. Next slide there, Linda, where we have this big red X popping up.
There it is.
Because we really have to be very careful, not just me in this public forum right now, but all of us, because the FDA has drawn a pretty heavy dark line saying that we cannot make any therapeutic claims about CBD. Well, if we ever start down that slippery slope of talking about dosing CBD for specific ailments, we've crossed that line of talking about therapeutic claims. So when we do talk about dosing, Evan jokes with me that I'll get on a phone call with you and I will legally tell you how to talk with a patient about the illegal concept of dosing for a therapeutic claim.
And we invite you to do that.
And please do that, call me, yeah. Let me say this about dosing, that one of the ideas and one of the conventional wisdom concepts is, well, just have a patient start low and go slow. I believe that's a bad idea for a couple of reasons. One, while you're going slow, the patient may not be getting any relief. So let's say someone that will eventually get some arthritic pain relief in their knees from a dose of 50 milligrams sublingual CBD daily. And you start them off at 20 or 25 milligrams, and you're going to go slow. It might be 2 or 3 weeks till you get up to 50 milligrams. So one, you've wasted a lot of their money when CBD wasn't working. And two, you have risked losing the patient's interest, saying, this crap doesn't work. I believe, and it is what I actually did when my wife started taking CBD almost 3.5 years ago now for her arthritic knees, and that is start high. Start at what we now know sort of anecdotally makes sense. Start at that 50, 60 milligrams of a sublingual product. And if it works, fine. The person is happy about that right off the bat, and you've done good for your patient, right? And then you can back it off. So you start at 50, maybe back it off to 40, and they're still getting some relief. You back it off to 35, and it stops. That's a much better way to titrate, I believe, than to start low and go slow.
I think somebody asked about dosing. How much systemic absorption occurs with topical application?
As far as we know now, because now there's somebody on there calling
Right,
us
I think
for
that was
statements
Amanda.
12 months ago.
Yep, that was
As far as
Amanda.
we know now, the absorption of topically administered CBD is negligible. It's just, it's not anything that, and that was a concern early on. If someone's taking oral or sublingual CBD and they're also using it topical, and the FDA was worried about that. That was one of the FDA's concerns.
Before we get to different dosing methods and those the different bioavailability there, because there are a lot of questions there. I just want to say, you know, we can't stress this enough, that if you Google this, you will find charts that have dosing information on them. Again, they can't be trusted. That information really should not be trusted. Most of them are from brands that think that they know about dosing, but really, you know, if you have any questions, I'm going to have Tim's information up here. Give him a call. He'd be more than happy to discuss that with you. So different dosing methods have different bioavailability. We have a bunch of questions about that. So it says here, what topical dosage forms of CBD provide the best results for joint and muscle pain?
Well, and what we need to look at there is it concentrated enough? So if you're going to be using a topical, there are people that range from, you know, 50 milligrams in an ounce to 300 milligrams in an ounce and more. So it might just be you're actually not delivering enough CBD topically. Let's just,
there's a question here. How does it affect liver metabolism of medications? That was Tim.
Well, that was somebody, that was Tim today. Yeah,
Yes.
That was Tim's tonight.
Yep.
And hopefully we answered that in the, when I was doing the live demo
Right.
of the website. And Tim, if you want to have some more answers there, honestly, Evan is the person to talk to. I will certainly, you know, call us and ask for Evan or I on that one. But let me get back to dosing just for a moment, because if you're going to have this conversation with people, I suggest that in order for you to be able to recommend a product such as CBD, and you know, what's the best ones and what do I tell the patient, I think you need to understand the product, and you probably need to be using the product. Why not?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I can be very excited and I can get very enthusiastic talking to someone about CBD, and it works for me. I've got 60-year-old knees, and you know, I overdo it doing weekend warrior stuff. I put topical CBD on, you know, once I hit the recliner or going to bed. It's amazing. You just, you know, I'm sorry to ask you to take my word for that, and don't take my word for it. Try it yourself.
Yeah,
it really does.
And honestly, with regard to even marketing too, it's good to talk to the current customers that you have that are using CBD and it's working for them, and maybe get testimonials from them, anecdotal information that you can pass on to other you know, potential customers for CBD.
Great point. And as a follow-up to exactly that, I suggest that a starting point, if someone asks you, gee, you know, I'm really confused how I should use this CBD and what kind of dose should I use? We had this question from Elisa, and the answer to that is, you know, I've tried to dance around some of this because we need to be pretty careful, but if you're able to give anecdotal information or personal information.
Yeah, they said, what is an effective way to discuss dosing?
Yeah.
Yep.
And I start with their understanding. I ask them, what do they know about CBD? Have they tried it? Does a spouse or a family member use it? And you find out where they are with it, and that's a really good starting point then for you to have that conversation about dosing and which products and how it works.
I don't have a slide for this, but we do get tons of these questions. This is probably one of our most asked questions. Caitlin's asking, what do we look for in quality products, and what are other brands that pharmacies might be selling that are popular? And how can you tell a good brand from, one that isn't?
Well, one of the basic and fundamental things that we're really trying to accomplish here is this is information not just about the products to sell the product. This is information that we as pharmacists need to understand and to be able to deliver good healthcare, good counseling information to our patients, to our customers, right? So in order to do that, we got to make sure that the products we're recommending are exactly what we believe we're recommending. In other words, if it says it's 50 milligrams per ml,
On the bottle.
we got to have a lot of confidence that what that label says is what's actually in the bottle. And the way to do that is to look at a certificate of analysis. And what we make sure that we do here at the website, and NCPA CBD Source has done this from day one, we only sell products that make those certificates of analysis available for each individual product specific to lot number.
And then we take it a step further.
And what we do second, and we're in the second round of those right now over the past 6 months, we randomly purchase these products and run our own third party. So I guess that's a fourth party test on that.
Yep.
Because each of the companies have a third party lab do their testing. And we do that as another layer above that, so that when a pharmacist believes that they are recommending a product that says 0% THC and this many milligrams of CBD, that's indeed what the customer is getting. That, we've drawn a line and said there's an integrity issue there.
We put these products through their paces. Yeah. If you have any questions about brands, specific brands, I would say call Tim. He definitely, he's vetted, dozens and dozens. We did have a question I just want to address here really quickly. If someone asked a question about Spanish, having materials available in Spanish, I'm not sure. I think we tried to ask.
The marketing, you mean?
Right. I'm not sure if you mean the marketing or if you mean the education on the website. So Evan?
Well, we actually have a section of links to literature that's available in Spanish. And we are working on getting a translation of the website in Spanish, but we do not currently have that available.
Okay, but we're working on that. And the marketing materials, we can have those, we can translate those. If you would need them in Spanish for your particular pharmacy, we invite you to call us, please.
And that's a great example of something that would go into the What's New tab.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So if you call us, we'll work with you.
Whoever that is who asked that question, we'll make sure who is that?
Yolanda. Okay, yeah.
We'll make sure we respond back and we'll work with you actually.
Absolutely.
Maybe you're already using a service maybe, or you are doing it yourself. That might be the way for us to go.
Absolutely.
Did we answer all the questions?
I think we had some questions about drug interactions, but I think we talked about that. I think we pretty much did get to everybody's questions. If you have any additional questions, submit them now and we can get to them. I think Kate asked what's the best formulations, but I think she meant products, and we of course just addressed that.
Yeah, the ones on our website. No. Someone asked a question yesterday in one of the webinars yesterday. What drug interactions have been observed? Not potential interactions, but what are being observed and reported? And I bring that one up probably as the last question here, as we're running out of time. It's getting late. Is the FDA is currently doing third phase human clinical trials with this company that I am not in a position to yet name. So the company we've partnered with is involved right now with the NIH doing FDA sanctioned clinical trials that are dealing with interactions and are dealing with exactly the types of things that we don't have the answers to, that we're sort of dancing around some of the some of the things that I would love to be able to say. But this is a specific one that these human trials now, and one of them, for example, is looking at opioid replacement.
And somebody asked about post-traumatic stress disorder.
PTSD is one of those 3 FDA sanctioned trials going on right now. And what's going to come out of these FDA trials are exactly what you're asking, what this person is asking. The observed, the real quantifiable, the reproducible drug interactions, because now I threw up that chart before, and those are all potential. You know, we know warfarin for sure. You know, we know clobazam, and we know a couple others, theophylline and some other things, and they're not really quantified outside of warfarin. We know warfarin, CBD could increase its blood levels up to 30%. So you may need a 30% dosage reduction in warfarin when you're taking CBD. That's one of the ones that we really have hardcore right now, but just rest assured that globally, there is a lot of research going on. There's clinical trials happening, and we're going to be, we being the pharmacy, all of us, pharmacists, the industry, we're going to be having that information roll in over the next few months and years as those studies give us real results that we can use, so we don't have to talk anecdotally about a lot of this.
Absolutely. You'll see Tim's information up here on the screen, and we invite you, of course, to call him, to email him. We like to keep him busy. So if you have any additional questions, you really want to do a deep dive. We've even had pharmacists want additional training for their staff, and Tim has graciously, led that type of training for specific pharmacies. So
Absolutely.
We invite you to please.
I would love to have conversations with each and every one of you about CBD.
And if Yolanda is still on here, we do have a section of literature that's available in Spanish under the Education for Pharmacists tab on the page Webinars and Articles. You can go on that page, and there's a section for articles, literature, and Spanish.
Did you just add that?
Awesome.
He just added that, Yolanda. Good call.
Just for you.
Keeping him
Right.
busy.
That's
That's
awesome.
pretty cool.
That's awesome.
So that is how up to date we're trying to keep this website. Literally,
Yeah,
it was
and
pages.
again, we, call or email Tim if you have any suggestions, if you're looking at this. Everyone who is attending any of the webinars that we have will be getting a follow-up email. You'll also get you'll get a discount. Actually, whenever we send that, you'll get a discount on premium membership. There's other discounts and information that we're going to be emailing out to you. We thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, I apologize that we went over here.
A little bit.
I just can't bring this in under an hour. I apologize. All right, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.